Fans of all ages, welcome to the Walt Disney Archive stage, here at D23, the ultimate Disney fan event.
Hi everybody, I'm Bob Weis from the Walt Disney Archives. How are you doing today? Any Archives fans out there? Thank you. So I'm really excited to be up here today and welcome you to Dream Chasing 4 Decades with Walt Disney Imagineering. It's an amazing retrospective of Bob Weis's 40 magical years with Walt Disney Imagineering. During his leadership at WDI, Bob led teams that accomplished more than 300 major breakthrough projects around the world. And joining him on stage is Leslie Iwerks, Oscar and Emmy-nominated filmmaker known for her highly acclaimed documentaries, including the Walt Disney Imagineering story. So please join me in welcoming them both to the stage, Bob Weis and Leslie Iwerks.
Happy Sunday morning, D23.
Wow. Tonight? Oh my God, right? Okay. I don't know, there's not the reaction I was expecting.
Happy Sunday morning, D23.
So,
Thank you all for waking up early, sort of early.
I'm so honored to be here with you all to talk about Bob Weis and his amazing career. I mean, you all know Bob Weis, right? The guy. I've had the pleasure of knowing Bob since I started on the Imagineering story, and we've just been through a lot of amazing stories together and experiences. He gave me the opportunity to go behind the scenes of Imagineering from Shanghai through all the things that we documented. So Bob and I have had a special relationship, and I really appreciate that. And
Do we just love Leslie Iwerks? Do we Imagineering story? Anything you're going to talk about with this book would not have happened had you not done the Imagineering story.
Oh.
Absolutely would not. You opened up Imagineering to the world, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't believe that, but
You do.
I got the rare opportunity to read this book as an advanced copy, and it is just amazing. It really gives you a deep dive in a way that I didn't get to see, really, through your eyes at such a detailed level. So you really get a great sense of what it takes to be an Imagineer and what it takes to get through the highs and lows and the trials and tribulations and the fear of a blank page and the excitement of a blank page, right? This book also would not have happened without Wendy Lefcon. Let's give it up for Wendy Lefcon.
I think we said backstage that Wendy Lefcon, which is the name you may not know, had done how many books?
400 books
She's done
published.
400 of the books you've seen about the Disney parks. 400 books. Could you please give it up for Wendy Lefcon? Wendy was going to be here today and she couldn't make it, so we'll send that to her. Thank you all. But amazing career telling stories about every aspect of the parks, from menus to art to design.
Yeah.
She's done it for 30 plus years.
I mean, Wendy has brought so many stories to life through her books that she's published, and including mine and my father's and so many other Imagineers, and now Dream Chasing.
She asked me if I could write a book, and I said no. And she said, you only have to write 250 pages. And I said, I think I got a C- in freshman comp in college. But with her guidance, help, everything, it's really a beautiful process. And we ended up writing 400 plus, but I didn't think I could do it, and without Wendy, I couldn't have done it. And without you, we couldn't have done it either.
Well, so let's start with talking about how this book started. Like, how did you craft it? What did you think about the story, the structure of it? And you have so many different stories you needed to tell, but how did you sort of start to craft it?
I started by what any of you might do, which was kind of recalling things about, I don't really want to make it about me, but I was recalling projects that I'd worked on and things like that, and then sort of aspects of my youth that I thought might be relevant to someone who ends up doing this kind of work. I think where we ended up, which I'm excited about, I'm really excited about with all of you, is I can kind of see you all out there. I'd love to see hands for people who have dreams. You've got a dream in you. I know there's a lot. You got your kids do, your grandkids do, your kids in college do. You have dreams, right? And there's an expression which is to follow your dreams. And I think that following your dreams is a very passive vision idea, right? And I think that what we all know is you have to chase your dreams. You really have to chase them. And in the case of Imagineering or filmmaking or what many or most of you do, you know you have to aggressively move forward to make dreams come true. And that ended up to be the driving idea of the book. And I hope that people will read that and say, we thought Imagineers had fun jobs, we thought they, did great things, but that it's hard work, it's fun, we take the fun seriously, and that you really have to chase these things if you have a hope to see if they get done.
So you've had, you grew up in Southern California.
Yeah.
Orange County, right?
Pomona.
So Disney was a big part of your early childhood. Tell me about growing up in this era. It was really the beginning of Disneyland at that point, right? The earliest.
Yeah, I'm a baby boomer kid. That's my baby boomer family there with the black and white Mercury car, all of us in front of the car. For some reason, all of my family pictures, I don't know about yours, they're all in front of the car. And that is my actual dad's Magic Kingdom Club card from probably around I think it says 67 or something like that. But I was born baby boomer family, 1957, so Disneyland had only been open for a couple of years. And so I don't remember life without Disneyland. And we often went to Disneyland on my birthday, which was at the end of, just before the school year started. I just was influenced my whole youth so when people have said to me during D23, which has been very moving to me, by the way, many of you have said how much Disney means to you. That's me. That's exactly how I think.
So you got a job at Disneyland.
I got a job at Disneyland.
We'll talk about your quick rise from.
I had a meteoric career. Mediocre or meteoric? Meteoric career at Disney. I went out to Disneyland because I was in architecture school at Cal Poly. Any Cal Poly students out here, or Cal Poly parents out here? And it seemed like a great place to get a part-time job, and I love Disneyland. So I thought, well, they'll put me in charge of parades, they'll put me in charge of the technology at Pirates of the Caribbean, running the ghosts at the Haunted Mansion.
All the cool stuff?
All that cool stuff. Oh yeah, you're gonna sell popcorn. What? Oh, and ice cream too. But I'll tell you that the opportunity for someone like me who was in theater school, architecture school, urban planning school, to stand outside of Disneyland all day and watch how it works. To watch, and you, if you're a vendor at Disneyland, you move from place to place. So you're in Adventureland one day, and you see how the place works. And you also have 10-second, 20-second interactions with guests. And in those interactions, you realize how important Disneyland is to them. And you realize that all of us we don't own Disneyland. You all own Disneyland. We have stewardship over Disneyland, and it is an important thing. So you learn that, and you learn how people flow, and when the parade goes on, how it flows differently. So it's a skill that I don't sell popcorn or ice cream anymore, but it is a skill that I learned to learn about Disneyland.
And then you ultimately got transferred over to the balloon.
Which was the most hellish day of my life. And they said, well, we're taking over the balloons, and the guys the folks who do ice cream and popcorn are gonna train on balloons. And it sounded interesting. But there is a very dark secret about Disneyland, which if no one takes this secret out of this room, I will tell you what it is. It is that on the way into Disneyland, everybody tells their kid, we'll get one on the way out. And so they put this poor balloon person by the main entrance at the end of Main Street. At that time, all you had was like a change apron with a bunch of quarters in it, and you're trying to keep these balloons from getting untangled, and everybody who was promised their kid one on the way out, they're gonna kill somebody if they don't get that balloon on the way out. And I stood there with tangled things, and I looked up, and balloons, 90% of them went into the air. It was the most stressful day of my entire life. And I went to my boss the next day, and I said, you know I'm a good ice cream person, I'm a great cast member, I'm a great popcorn person, but I can never do balloons again. And they said, you cannot run from your fears. If you want to work at Disneyland, if you want to work here, you have to do balloons. And that was the end of my Disney career.
Is that awesome or what?
It was hard. You could see me. I'm still freaked out about it.
And you would sell balloons for 35 cents each, right?
No, balloons were 50 cents.
Oh, 50
That's why they gave you quarters. I think popcorn was 35.
35 cents?
Yeah, I still kind of remember my times tables of 35.
Yeah.
No, but listen, no computers, no calculators, no even little sheet. You had to know what it was.
35 cents times 3?
Oh, you would ask that. $1.05, anybody know?
Yes.
Good
job. Now, I want to go back.
No tax at that time.
I just want to go back to one story when you were younger. I think you were in elementary school. You were on your way, you had a pet goldfish, right?
I had 2.
So there's this great story in this book. You had 2 pet goldfish, and it was a story that stayed with him his entire life, and I just want you to tell the fans the story.
She didn't freak me out enough about the balloon story. Now she's got
Yeah.
the goldfish story. I tried to put things in the book that I thought were illustrative of things that were later occur in my career. I don't know why this one does it, but I had this bowl, beautiful bowl, 2 goldfish in it. I only lived a couple blocks from school.
You were in, how old were you?
I was only like in 2nd or 3rd grade. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
And
Little Bob.
Little Bob, and I thought this would be really great to show my classmates, so I decided to carry it to school. And I got all the way there, I got almost outside the classroom. And then all I saw was a cloud of water and broken glass and goldfish flying through the air. And I see, somebody else had this experience. So I didn't know what to do. I reached down into the glass and I grabbed the 2 wiggling fish and I ran into my classroom where there was an aquarium. I ran to my teacher's like, what are you doing? And I threw them into the aquarium and they were okay. And I was happy to learn that goldfish have very short memories. So by the time they were in the water, they probably forgot. But I remember this experience my entire life.
Yeah, you saw it in slow motion, the fish
I
falling
saw
out.
the slow motion, wiggling fish, glass, everything. And it just, I guess the relevancy to me and why it stayed with me so long is it only takes you a second to make a decision to do something. And often decisions are the right ones, sometimes they're misguided ones. And the impact of those decisions can stay with you for a long time. And I used to wake up at night thinking about those wriggling fish. And then later on, I read an Australian scientist who did a study on goldfish, who refuted the idea that they had short memories. So it's possible that those fish remember this the rest of their lives. And that makes me even more freaked out.
You saved their life, though. You saved their life.
Okay. They just don't know how they flew out of the sky into where they ended up. Yeah, fish.
So you, from your job at Disneyland, you then went to college.
Yeah.
And then tell us about how you got to WDI, or WED at that moment.
Completely randomly, I was studying theater and architecture. My major was in architecture, and the 2 campuses were kind of on different sides of the hill. And I had worked so hard on projects and things that, in theater projects, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was getting ready to graduate, and I really didn't have an idea. And LA, even then, was not much of a big theater town, and I hadn't made plans to move to New York or anything like that. And I was walking back up to the architecture department, and I hadn't paid attention like I usually didn't pay attention. And there was a job fair going on, and there was a desk there, and it said WED, and which was the original name of Walt Disney Imagineering. And I didn't even have my portfolio together. I went to my locker and I put a bunch of sheets into a thing that I hadn't assembled, and I went in there and I got in line and I talked to them. And she was amazing. She said, your work is exactly what WED looks for. You have theater, storytelling, design, examples of all these in your portfolio. Send your portfolio in, fill out this form. You're just exactly what we're looking for. This is at the beginning of the 80s, so it's like really the second generation of Imagineers coming in to do Epcot in Tokyo. So I went from having no idea what I was going to do to exactly what I was going to do. I was going to go to work for this place. And so a couple weeks before I thought I was going to be graduating, I get this wonderful letter from them on an envelope. It says, thank you for applying, but your skills are not a match for our jobs. I won't say the word I said, but it was a shock, and it was, my sister said, they really liked you. You said they really liked you, so why don't you call them? I said, they don't make mistakes like that. I'm not gonna call them. And she actually convinced me to call them. And they said, we don't really know what happened, but if you want to come back in and interview again, you can. So I did, and I got hired that time. So it was
Wow.
Anybody who's asked me about Imagineering and about getting jobs there, I've said, stay on the job sites, stay looking all the time. It is, most of the people that came in that I know have come in through tremendous perseverance.
Yeah.
Kept trying.
That's great. And so what do you remember about your first visit to WED? I mean, you were in the model shop, and that was
Yeah, I remember, actually I remember driving up and for the interview and remembering to think, this is the ugliest place I've ever seen in my life. It's like a bunch of, concrete buildings in the middle of an old airport. An old airport next to a bowling alley. So this can't be right. But once you go inside, even then, once you go inside WED,
right.
It becomes like if the North Pole had a real Santa's Elves factory, or if there really was Charlie's Chocolate Factory, it feels like that, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you walk in the back and there's trucks driving by with dinosaurs in the back, and elephants in pools spitting water, and it was incredible. And you can't walk down the halls without thinking, this is exactly where I want to be.
So who was there when you were starting? Who do you remember?
Well, our generation, if I can call us that, because this is 1980 when I was hired, we truly were the ones who came in as the second generation after the people that Walt brought in. So, I worked with Claude Coates, with Exitencio, with Sam McKim, and we were kind of the young kids out of college who didn't know anything, and they made sure they told us we didn't know anything. And we did all the running. We did all the fast running around and doing things like that. And I didn't really think about it until afterwards, but what was happening was WED had been the handmade R&D factory of Walt, as you know from your history, your father's history, had been the handmade factory of Walt, and it was now having to take a big step up in professionalism, because Epcot was not an easy thing to do. Epcot was a huge, difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
They were not going to be able to sort of hand make Epcot. And at the same time, the company committed, kind of at the last minute, to do Tokyo Disneyland at the same time. And they had no resources to do both, or even partially both. And so there was this flood of a new generation of graduates who came in, and as the result of Tokyo, which is what I worked on, or the result of Epcot, we came back pretty experienced because we had been through the battle. We hadn't really created anything, but we had built a lot of stuff and we knew how to build Disney product. So that's how the next gen kind of got.
So who were the mentors that you really started to get to know? Because you said in it was page 40, 48 and 49 that if you could ask these guys questions today, what you would, you just wish you could.
I think that and again, I go back to the Imagineering story because a lot of you know people from Imagineering history because of Leslie's sensitivity in telling the story. But at the time, they were all so unassuming. They were all just so regular guys.
You didn't think about asking about their past.
So here's Harriet Burns behind a desk at the model shop, but you didn't really know what an amazing career she had. She was there working. Claude Coates was a very kind of shy, introverted guy sitting there.
This is pre-books, like
this is before anybody would write a book or anybody, so
no one knew.
My office was next to Exitencio, and I imagine today, I've listened in later life. I've listened to the recording sessions of X recording the Haunted Mansion or Pirates, things like that. But they were just kind of folks there at Imagineering.
Yeah.
And so.
What would you ask them today if you could?
Oh, I can think of so many things I'd ask them, like, how did you come up with that theme or that idea? Or, and we did, you would go in and you'd look over their desk and you'd see them doing, unbelievable paintings or drawings or with incredible backgrounds in color theory or design or whatever. Bill Martin, who was Walt's perhaps greatest architect. Just so many great people, but they were very just innocent about it.
So you got to know John Hench.
Yeah.
And a little bit. So in the book, there was something I did not know, which I was actually really surprised by, which is it's an inspiration. Who knows what Neckos are?
You brought the
Necco wafers? Yeah? Okay, so you disclosed that Necco wafers were the inspiration to the Main Street.
You disclosed it to me. Give me those.
Main Street USA.
This. I'm so glad you brought these. Where did you find them?
I found them in a candy store in Ventura.
They're not that available. I'm not open.
They're very
mind if I open them? No, John Hench told me. He did tell me this, and I liked Necco wafers as a kid. By the way, Necco's wafers came out in like the Civil War or something.
They did. You're right.
But I'm going to strip them back and spill them all over the stage. But seriously, buy a package of Necco wafers if you want to teach your kids or your students color theory. And this was John's point, is that it doesn't matter which Necco wafer you pick up. Any two, they will always go together. So, this is purple and pink, they will go together. But if you keep the pink and you switch it to orange, those two will go together perfectly. Or if you add this creamy mint, those three will go together. All you have to do is I'll tell you what you do. Get Neckos and walk around Epcot. You can find all of the colors at Epcot that John did back then. Everything John did, he got out of Necco wafer. Obviously, he had closure and everything else. But this was his illustration about what is Disneyland. Disneyland is a place where things are compatible with each other.
Right.
Where there aren't deep contrasts or scary contrasts between things. There are things that live well together, and it goes for everything. It goes for the whole philosophy of Disneyland. That things go together well.
So who knew that, right?
Yeah.
Is that cool? So you got to know
The
more.
chocolate ones are the best. The brown ones are the best. If you want.
Yeah, the chocolate are the best. They have a whole roll of chocolate.
Chocolate and orange together go really well too.
So from there you got to know Mark Davis, and then Mark Davis segueing into, obviously you got to know Marty Sklar, which is amazing. But Mark Davis you got to know, and you work with him at Tokyo.
Yeah, Mark, not well. Mark came over close to the end. Marty, when Marty finished Epcot, Marty Sklar, we all know Marty Sklar, right?
Yes,
When Marty finished Epcot, which had been a huge load on them, huge amount of stress on them, you would have thought that Marty would have taken a vacation or something, taken a year off or something after a huge effort like that. He didn't. He gathered up Mark Davis and John and a whole lot of folks, Buddy Baker, just a huge amount of great Disney classic, people, excuse me, and he brought them all to Tokyo. And because he wanted the DNA of Disney to make sure that it was coming through in this the first Disneyland ever done outside the United States. And so we each were assigned someone to take around. And I spent a lot of time with Marty, and I spent a lot of time with Mark during that. And Mark was a scream. Mark was very funny.
Was he?
Yeah, he's funny. And he was always drawing little cartoons and stuff. But it was fun. It was fun to have them. It was an honor to have them now as I look in retrospect. And it was that time that I got to know Marty, because then when I came back, he was instrumental in me getting to continue at Imagineering and getting into the creative group and stuff. So it was very, my boss, who was Frank Stanek at the time, was really smart about getting us, because we had all been off in Tokyo for 2 or 3 years, and the home office didn't even know who most of us were.
Wow.
So it was great that we got a reintroduction.
So you told me that you had an amazing perspective of Disney through your time at Tokyo, because you saw the world, you saw Disney from an international perspective. And I thought that was interesting compared to a lot of Imagineers who stayed in Glendale and were really focused on Disneyland and Walt Disney World, but you had that international perspective. What did you glean?
I think that I learned at early in my career that Disney, being a very powerful storytelling company, very powerful creative company, but that you couldn't just roll over where you were going. In fact, Bob Iger once said about Shanghai that we were guests of the country. And I think we were guests in Japan too. And I think in the long term, any Tokyo Disneyland fans out there? And I got to work on Tokyo Disney Seas, and I think what we found was you have tremendous talent locally in that culture and a background, and then you have Disney, and keeping them separate doesn't help you. But if you can really bring them together, you can really do something special. And I think part of the reason that Tokyo Disneyland became so successful is that combination of real dedication to Disney standards and Disney ethics, and Japanese service, refinement, hospitality, all those things. So when you put those together, you really got a powerhouse culture. And we're seeing, really for the first time now, in Shanghai, we're seeing that in our Chinese guests too, that sort of real connection to Disney. So I remember I was in a focus group, and this guy didn't say much in the focus group, but politics came up a little bit about how much Americana Disney in Shanghai should be. And at the end of it, he spoke up and he said, it's not about Americana, it's not about America. Disney is not America. Disney belongs to the whole world. And I've never forgotten that, and I think it really is true.
That's true. That's true. That's great. Well, and you got to meet one of the most famous people in Tokyo, which is Takahashi-san. Tell me about do you all know Takahashi-san? You called him
one of the
Walt
founders of Oriental Land Company, which is really responsible for the vision of getting Tokyo Disneyland done. And Tokyo Disneyland was fishing land, or it was fishing water, not land. I'm back to my goldfish. It was a shallow marsh that fishermen fished in, and he had to go out for years, literally for years, and take fishermen out and get them drunk every night until he could convince them to give up the fishing rights so that they could reclaim the land that Tokyo Disneyland is on.
Wow.
So you talk about dedication.
And a lot of drinking.
I'm gonna get drunk every night until I get to Tokyo Disneyland.
Wow.
But that is kind of the way you get things done in Japan, but you know, at that time. But socially.
At that time.
But he had the real vision. He's the one that came to Card Walker to try to convince the Card Walker, who was chairman, after Walt died, of Disney, and to try to bring the park to Tokyo. And Card was very worried about Epcot, Walt's last, quote-unquote, last journey. And so Card was very worried that anything that would distract WED away from Epcot was dangerous. But eventually, Takahashi was very persuasive and convinced it would bring Tokyo to Disneyland.
Amazing. So then you went to Epcot after Tokyo and worked there for a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Tell us about what you did.
Yeah, I hated the name of this project. It was called Color and Fun. Here I spent all this time working around Tokyo Disneyland, traveling around the world. Oh yeah, your assignment is color and fun. It's kind of like balloons. But they had opened Epcot and they had gotten all the big stuff right, but there was a lot of the intimacy that people knew of Disneyland that in the first years of Epcot wasn't there. I can go back to, anybody know Epcot in this room? And undoubtedly you know Food and Wine and the Flower Festival. Epcot is a very rich place now. It wasn't when it opened. It was a much more stark. The shows were there, but the in-between wasn't there. There was a lot of grass and a lot of pavement in between.
Concrete.
So we were doing banners and new colors and shade, and it was just trying to bring the things that people expect when they go to Disneyland to Epcot to the degree you could.
So you brought color and fun to it.
Yeah, colorful.
Awesome.
I brought flamingos to Epcot.
Did you?
Yeah, they're this color.
So then, okay, so from there you came back to WED, and that was the sort of a new rebirth of Disney with Michael Eisner and Frank Wells coming in. Very exciting time. And what was exciting about that transition? And where did you go from there? What did you get tasked to work on?
Michael Eisner and Frank Wells kind of set off a storm at Disney because the company had been very conservative for a while. You know, they had spent a lot of money on Epcot. The company was kind of, from a Imagineering point of view, and you have this in your documentary, there was some even concern that Imagineering might not be kept as an organization.
Right.
Because, you know, were we ever really going to build anything like that again, that size, that scale, you know? And Michael Eisner and Frank Wells, they just immediately saw Imagineering as an asset, as an exciting. Michael just wanted to go over there all the time and talk about ideas and talk about creative stuff. Frank wanted to know all about it. So they just started launching, you know, barrages of stuff. We should do a park in Paris. We should do another park in Tokyo. We should do, you know, nighttime energy at Walt Disney World. So by the time they had been around for, I would say, even a month or so, there were just brainstormings going on everywhere. There weren't enough creative people to manage the number of things that they were asking Marty to explore.
Wow.
And so he would look around at the room and he'd say, like, well, who can I put on this?
How
And
fun.
lucky, we're like, okay, like you, go get some people and figure this out.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really a very energizing time.
And so that led you to Hollywood, Disney's Hollywood Studios, eventually.
Yes. And Michael had gone to Epcot, and there were these big pavilions about energy and transportation and things. And he said, there's no pavilion for entertainment. That's our business. Why isn't there a pavilion? There's a pavilion for entertainment. And again, Marty kind of looked around the room like, who are we going to put on this thing? And he pointed at me and said, can you put a small group together and figure out what an entertainment pavilion at Epcot would be? And entertainment at that time, way back then, was simpler than it is to now. You didn't have a huge game business, you had no internet, you had no, it was a very different world. You really had movies and television and radio and theater and things like that. So we came up with an idea for a pavilion at Epcot. And at that time, you sort of like brought something in, and it was, maybe you had a week to come up with an idea on a couple of sketches. And Marty had these flip charts he was doing. We were working very, very fast. And this thing just launched in Michael's mind very quickly. And all of a sudden we were just like doing more and more.
So that led to Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, it started out as a pavilion at Epcot, and then he said, well, why don't we add sound stages to it, because we're gonna increase our amount of film production, and we'll do a tour there. And pretty soon this thing was like half again its size of Future World. And so we said, well, why don't we put it on its own site? And people say they built Disneyland in 14 months, and it's remarkable to us today.
Right.
But we designed and built the studio tour in 36 months, which is, by today's standards, unbelievable.
Very fast.
And he wanted things fast. Once he decided he wanted something, it was really, let's move.
That's exciting, right?
Yeah, it was an exciting time. Crazy time, but exciting.
So you have a story in your book about the Brown Derby. You worked on all these cool parts, and you spent. What kind of research did you do when it came to things like the Brown Derby?
Well, we wanted to create a kind of Hollywood that really never was. It was a Hollywood that was more optimistic and
Than the real thing.
This is something that John Hench told me at the time, was Hollywood in the 1930s was a super exciting, optimistic time, and so have fun with it, have fun. So we started researching, and when you went down to Hollywood, it was a dismal place. Some parts of it still are that way, but there were just incredible landmarks, all closed. The Pan Pacific had been closed. Only the facade was left. The building was gone, and the Brown Derby was closed. The one on Hollywood and Vine, the most famous one, with all the caricatures inside and everything. It was closed, boarded up, fence around it. And I was there with my friend Richard Graham, architect, and we saw there was a window slightly open. So, what do?
Stuck in.
We snuck in, and
Love that.
we roamed around in there, hoping nobody would find us, and we measured it out. Measured out if you've ever been to Brown Derby in Orlando, it's measured out from these two burglars who went in, and that's how we got it. That's how the rest we got from photographs, historic photographs, but we did take a measurement.
So you tell in your book a great story about when it opened. You had the opportunity to take Roy E. Disney through the park and take him to the Brown Derby.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Yeah, I had spent a lot of time on the Hollywood Boulevard section of the studio tour because I always loved Main Street. So I said, well, this is going to be our Main Street. Because Main Street was Walt's home, and this is sort of another generation. And so I tried to go down and take pictures, and the group that worked with me, we tried to bring to light these landmarks of really uniquely Hollywood, the Deco and Spanish. It's a mixture of many things. Deco, Spanish, and there's the camera building, and there's we did the Chinese theater, and we thought, is this going to resonate with people? Will people get emotionally connected to this like they do with Main Street? And I had met Roy E. Disney, who, if you didn't know, Roy E. Disney is a kind of a spitting image of Walt Disney. So he was kind of intimidating to talk to because he looked so much like your memory of Walt Disney and his one lovely wife. I gave him a little tour, and she started talking as we're walking down Hollywood Boulevard. So before it opened, she said, "Oh, well, that's where I used to go to the dentist." And it wasn't that building, but it was like 100 other buildings that could have been when her dentist. We had captured, like Main Street, the Emporium, the corner drugstore. We had sort of done that because she was realizing she remembered this, even though it was all of our memory of it, right? And so
Right.
it's especially her generation. So we go up, we go to the Brown Derby, and we go inside, and go in the big room there with all the caricatures, and Roy says, let's go up to that booth. And he sits down at this booth, and he says, this is the booth where I would sit with my dad and my uncle, and they would talk business, and we'd have lunch. And he knew it was exactly that booth. Of course, it was all built, but that was his powerful memory. So we thought we were onto something.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So one of the reasons I wrote the book, I guess, as I finally got over the fear of it, Leslie, was, and I know how you work as a documentary filmmaker. You collect stuff and then you find your themes, right? As you collect, you start to find those themes that are going to be important to you. Is that I'm the only one that knows that memory of Roy and his wife coming in there, because I was the only one with them, and I also, broke into the building. So there are certain through lines that I thought it's fun to put all this together, because otherwise people won't ever know how all those things fit together.
Right, it's your own memories, your first person memories.
Yeah, and it's it was fun. So you don't know if I made it up or not.
No, it's important. You didn't even have a diary. You said you didn't keep a diary all these years.
No, I put things together. Luckily, you have milestones in park projects, so you know when they opened, you know when you broke ground, you know when you did certain things, so you can sort of tie dates together.
Sure.
And then you can kind of say, well, where we were, things like that.
Well, so in the stories in the book are a lot of little vignettes, so you have very short little chapters,
Yeah.
which makes it kind of fun and rapid, and you can get through chapters quickly, and you feel good like you're getting through it. But Tokyo Disney Sea, you worked on the second gate. Tell us about your collaboration with Frank and Michael.
Yeah, Michael was convinced after we opened the studio in Florida that we should do that in Tokyo.
And you had this amazing meeting you write about where you
Yeah.
felt like you were reliving your goldfish memory all over again.
Right.
Your pitch.
They never really liked it. The meaning Oriental Land Company. They didn't have the same connection to the movie theaters or movies, and so we kept trying to make it better.
You were trying to get that park into Tokyo Disney
We were
Sea.
trying to help make Disney MGM Studios something that Oriental Land Company would like, and we did our best. And eventually, I asked Frank Wells to just ask Takahashi-san, just ask him if he likes it. And Frank said, I know he likes it, I don't have to ask him. I said, just one-on-one ask him. And he said, do you like this park? He said, no, we don't like it. After a very long time.
After years.
After at least a few years. And so the team, when I got back to Glendale, we were very disappointed. This is where the subtitle of Success and Failure come from, that you failed at something, yep. But the team refused to give up. So in the failure of the studio for Tokyo came the success of Tokyo Disney Seas. And it came in a couple of weeks because the team refused to not have it move forward. So they started, we all sat down, we started saying, what did we learn from this? What does OLC want? What does Michael want? How can we put together a new kind of idea? We came up with this idea of waterfront Disneyland with harbors and things like that instead of lands. And we presented it within a few weeks. We presented it to OLC. We had presented it to Michael and Frank in the hallway.
Right, that's the story I was so fascinated by. You had the three of them with Marty.
Yeah, I went down to the hallway, what we call the Gold Coast at WDI, with some little papers like this, and I just stood outside Marty's office. And it happened that Michael and Frank and Marty came out, and I said, "Do you have 2 minutes?" And I lied. It took longer than that, but
and Marty,
I had this thing, and of course, Marty was always willing to let us walk the plank.
Marty hadn't even seen this picture.
He hadn't seen it. I was just saying, what if this? What if this? What if this? And Frank looked at Michael, and then Marty looked at them, and they said, "Okay, get ready to take to Tokyo."
And then you took it to
And that
Tokyo and you pitched it.
And we pitched it, and that was exactly what Takahashi-san was looking for.
Isn't that amazing? Like, that's so cool.
People ask me about pitching, and we all learned a lot about pitching from Michael Eisner because he was a TV person, and so you had to have a clear idea. He wasn't gonna, like, you didn't read a War and Peace when you
Right.
talk about
It was a quick elevator.
concise, quick. And so I always say to people, if you're gonna pitch yourself, you're gonna pitch an idea, do the elevator pitch, which means you gotta do it, but it might be 3 floors, it might be 10 floors,
Or
it
the
might be
Tower
2 floors.
of Terror pitch.
Or it might be the Tower of Terror pitch, it might be seconds. You're right. But you have to be able to have a clear idea and pitch it quickly to
That was
move
impressive.
dreams across.
I mean, I'm just impressed you walk in with Michael and Frank and just pitch it with Marty not even seeing it. And you
Those were
did
the
it.
days, I think in the previous days, you never went out of the building without Marty and John Hench seeing it.
Right.
And once Michael and Frank came in, everything was moving so fast that it was impossible to have protocol anymore.
So when you finished with Tokyo Disney Sea, you had one thing about, and we'll get through a few questions here, but we had Disney's America, and one thing I've learned about Imagineers is you can work on a project for quite a while and it doesn't see the light of day, and can be really hard for an Imagineer who put their blood, sweat, and tears into that and full creativity. So when you were working on Disney's America, what did that feel like when it finally ended up not working, and then that gave you the courage to kind of go out on your own for a little bit?
Yeah, I think Disney's America was important to me to put in the book because sometimes things don't happen because they shouldn't happen. Sometimes things don't happen, they should happen. And every scale in between. And so I didn't want to put all things that were successful in there because I think it's important. We all share ideas and notions about things that don't happen. And Disney's America was something a lot of us believed in. We tried hard to make it work. We brought in a lot of supporting players from the Smithsonian and the history community. A lot of people were really into the idea that Disney could play a role in telling better, making history more important as time goes on. And it was a less divisive time than today, but it was still divisive back then. But Disney had always played a role, from Hall of Presidents to so many things in trying to unify people, and we thought we could do something there. So when it failed, and I don't think you necessarily say, well, it failed because of me, or it failed because of somebody, or we collectively we couldn't make it work. Failure is a powerful word if you use it, but I thought it was interesting and important to illustrate something like that, where the whole company got behind something and it just fizzled. And there's just sometimes things we have this thing called putting stuff back in the drawers, and literally, you take all your artwork and all your paintings and all this stuff, and you go to a place that is appropriately called the art morgue, and they pull the big drawers out and put it all in the drawers, and the morgue drawer closes and you lock it.
Wow.
And sometimes it gets pulled out again years later.
Where is that morgue?
It's on the WDI campus.
Oh, I need to check that out.
Not at Forest Lawn. It's at the WDI.
So then you went on your own, you started your own business, you got to work with a lot of different clients, and...
Yeah, I've always been interested, and even today, I'm a strategic advisor on a lot of, I think we have a lot of powerful issues today in our cities post-COVID. So many, we walk through our cities, and our buildings are empty, and a lot of our restaurants are closed, things like that. But I've always been interested in outside problems and how Disney's talent can enrich things. And over the years, Imagineering has supported people from Mayo Clinic to Smithsonian to a lot of other organizations with our brainstorming talent, things like that. So I went out for a couple of years, did that, got to work on some fun outside projects.
Documentaries.
Yeah, not like you, but
Cool. And then, so that's the one thing I've learned is that, you're not an Imagineer anymore, you're working on your own, and that's hard. It's hard to not be part of that, I'm sure. But then you got the call to come back, and that was an unexpected call, and that led
Yeah,
to
another project that I was, this is kind of my other balloon man thing. Is, we thought we were going to do a big project in Australia, in Sydney, and it took something like that to get me to come back. I was like, of course I'd love to go. I love Australia. I'd taken my son to Australia. So we thought we were going to do an interesting new kind of project in downtown Sydney. And then as soon as I closed down the company, moved back to California, I hadn't even unpacked the boxes. And I had a meeting my first meeting with Bob Iger. And I presented it all, and he said, "Oh, this is great. I love Sydney. I could have I could go sailing in the harbor while you're building it." And then he said, he looked at us all and he said, "But the future of Disney is China, not Australia." And I went like, "Oops." And I called my two bosses, Bruce and Craig, at the time. I said, "I think I just got fired and I haven't even been hired yet." But I ended up doing an assignment I didn't think I was going to do, but I ended up loving. I wasn't that happy at the time, but I ended up doing the massive reinvention of Disney California Adventure, which I and that's one of those things where it's like, I thought I was going to Sydney, and all that stuff, and now I'm this park that nobody seems to like very much. But we got together and we said, it's hard to be across the street from Disneyland, no matter what you are, right? But we said this is a campaign for what makes people love a Disney park. What is love about? And people did not love DCA. It had some of the most popular attractions in the whole resort, but there was not this love, there was not this, people go there just to stroll around.
Right.
And so I remember describing to Bob Iger that we were going to change the entire main entrance. And it was only, a few years old. And he said, "Is that really necessary?" And I said, "Well, if you're doing an animated movie and the first act doesn't work, it's going to be very hard to ever recover that in the movie." And we knew we were going to do things like Cars Land, Little Mermaid. We sort of knew we were going to do new stuff. The part that was hard was the things that we changed that were kind of already functioning okay, but they weren't functioning great. And we knew, as an example, World of Color, and the World of Color fans out there, we knew that as tough as it would be to drain the lake, build a World of Color, Steve Davidson had a great concept that was going to be very expensive to do, that you would never have nighttime at DCA without it. You'd never have dinner, you'd never have people strolling around in the evening. And so those things, they're additive, they all add up together to what makes people love a park, and hopefully people love that park.
You did it.
Today.
You did it. Thank you, Bob, for that. And then you got the amazing project, Shanghai Disneyland.
Yeah.
From there, you got pulled from
It's
DCA to run.
Winning the lottery,
Yeah. to build the biggest park. I mean, I got the chance to go, 6 times or so to Shanghai over the course of the years. And the first time I think, met you and really spent time with you was having dinner on the Bund at that nice restaurant.
Yeah.
And anyway, got to document Bob behind the scenes over the years. I mean, just a teeny, hundredth thousands of a percentage of the time he spent there. But I was just amazed at his leadership skills, his ability to lead this entire thousands of people, really, just give us a glimpse.
What's the hardest thing?
Give us a glimpse of how you even tackled it. It's like building an entire city.
It was early on. We worked very closely with Bob Iger. It was his first park from the ground up, and so we took the notion that we were going to build a brand new Pirates, brand new Tron, and a lot of different new kinds of things, and then you get there and you realize that it's a very tough construction environment. So we were walking in with the plans for the most sophisticated Disneyland we've ever built in the most unsophisticated construction market we'd ever worked in. And so it was a very, very tough slog. There were 10,000 construction workers lived on site, and we had to train them all in safety. We had to show them Disney movies so they know what Disney was. We look after the safety of the workers, train them, all those things. But a very, very dedicated team of both Americans and international Disney people. People came from all over the Disney world to be there. And incredible people that we met there who were talented, forceful, wanted to be Disney, similar to Oriental Land Company in Japan. And we got it done, and it was a huge, huge effort. But we're all, and the most emotional day for me, any Imagineer's most emotional day is the day a park opens. Just when you first see people flow in, it's a giant, tearful moment that you experience because you've worked 5, 6, 7 years to build something. But the most emotional day for all of us was actually several years later because the park had been closed for COVID. And we, on somebody's iPhone, we watched it reopen. And that was like,
Wow.
there's hope.
For sure. Just like the opening at Disneyland here.
Yeah,
Right?
or when it reopened, it's just like amazing.
So with Shanghai then, that led you to Bob pulling you off Shanghai and putting you in place of the presidency of Imagineering from 2016 to 2021, right?
Yeah.
So you went from one major running an army in Shanghai to now running another army, so to speak, in Glendale. What did you glean from your experience in Shanghai to leading Imagineers?
Yeah, I thought it would be like just more projects, bigger, and you'd be more, you'd have to delegate more. But what I really learned was that it was the things that you learned are preparing you to do the things you never thought you'd have to do. And COVID, for anybody to imagine that we would be sitting there with every park in the world closed, with every ESPN event closed, and then to have to figure out what do we do next? And we had huge projects around the world, and we slowly restarted them. And everything you've seen from Fantasy Springs at Tokyo Disney Seas to everything around the world that has been finished in the last kind of 6 months or so were all projects that were put on hold during COVID. We got them all done. We brought the parks back. We had lots of other challenges during that time. And the biggest challenge, I think, which I learned from Marty, and Marty wrote me a letter when I became president in his handwritten red ink. But the thing I learned from him is Walt started Imagineering. It was Walt's R&D lab. It was his little group of people that he pulled together. And so you have to respect the fact that Imagineering is a place where you're supposed to do the impossible, you're supposed to dream things big, dream them, chase them, and you are supposed to bring your whole self, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, bring your whole creative self, your whole technological wizardry self, and we all work together to try to do great things. And you have to it is so essential, and all of your support is so essential to keep that organization vibrant. And it's global, it's around the world, but to keep that organization vibrant, because that's what does it.
And you kept the morale up during COVID.
And
So-
tough to keep a bunch of crazy people happy.
Well, so I just want to say thank you for writing this book because it's going to inspire so many people. And I hope you all go out and get it. I think it's sold out, maybe. I don't know, but
It comes out
make
September
sure you get it.
24th.
And you're also doing an audiobook, I understand.
And I've been recording the audiobook too, so that'll be on audiblecon.com. And I know it's been up and down to try to find at D23, but it is on pre-sale everywhere, and it ships out on September 24th. And I couldn't be more excited. Thank you. Doing one more signing in a little while, yeah.
Okay, so go get us a good book and get
And
a sign.
down in the consumer products part.
But we have one more surprise for y'all
Uh-oh.
that he's up to. He's never stops working. Tell us all about. Can you tell us about your next project?
I'm so enchanted with writing, and Wendy and I, after her 400 books, she's committed, and we're going to do a couple more. One is a massive book, which we talked about last D23, which is the discovery of the largest undiscovered archive in the company, which is all the stuff that Marty Sklar collected over his 50-year career. Talking about notes from Walt, letters from Ray Bradbury, ephemera from every part of the park development around the world. So a massive collector's book. But it's going to tell the story of Marty and his journey in a way that he even in his couple of books he didn't tell as much. So that's going on.
So yeah, because Marty was a part of all 12 parks.
All 12. He was part of all 12 of them, and also all of the openings. And I also have a book coming out on the Haunted Mansion in a few months too. So.
That's happily read too, so that's exciting. Well, thank you, Bob, for everything, for being you, for inspiring us all. And,